Is it worse for a woman to sleep around or cheat than it is for a man? Okay, let's talk about it. You know, because this is something that sometimes I hear people say. You know, it's worse. A woman ain't supposed to be doing that. Let me say this. Let me say a couple things. And, you know, don't jump to conclusions. Hear me out. I can understand why a man can feel like it's worse when a woman sleep around or cheating. And I'm gonna get into that. I also want to say, I think it's on even playing field when somebody's sleeping around if somebody cheating. I don't think one is worse than the other. So let's talk about it. Naturally speaking, right, when we're dealing with these things, operating in these lanes of romance and sex, which is natural. Nobody have to teach you to like somebody, feel somebody attractive, have a desire for companionship in a romantic way. Nobody have to teach you to have a sex drive or have sexual feel. All that is natural. So from a natural point of view, men, you know, how men, when it comes to operating in these lanes of romance and sex, we are the natural pursuers, right? I'm not talking about, we gonna get into, you know, how you're supposed to move in those areas and all that kind. Just naturally speaking, when dealing with sex and romance, men are the natural pursuers. We're the ones who's going out to get. Naturally speaking. The woman, not so much. The woman is the one who's, you know, being pursued, right? She's not the one who's just out on a, you know, out to go get. She's out, you know, sizing up people, okay, you know, being pursued, basically, right? Even when you look at our parts sexually, right? The man penis, the woman vagina, the man is entering and the woman is being entered. You know, all that kind of plays itself back into that natural state of being a pursuer and, you know, being the one who is not the pursuer, but being the one who's being pursued. It all kind of play come into play naturally and biologically. Now, that's why I say I can understand how it may seem like, because a man could be looking at it just from that natural point of view and say, hey, I'm just operating how I'm operating as a man. I am the go-getter. I am the pursuer. They're not. So what are they doing sleep? It's worse when they sleep. They ain't even supposed to be how they moving like that, right? I get how that, I understand that logic and how it can seem like it's worse for a woman to sleep around or cheat, right? And you, as men, we are the natural pursuers and they are the one that's being pursued. And we are the enterers and they are the ones that they're being entered. All of that is true from a natural point of view, right? When you get down to it. But this sex and romance thing, it has its natural element to it, but it's also there's also a social element, right? Because when we use these things, we're going to use it in this world, in this life that we living in, interacting with each other. They're going to have finances tied to it. They're going to have emotions tied to it. They're going to have family building tied to it, whether you're going to have a single parent household, two parent household, you know, all this, they're going, you know, all of these things socially and living this life is also tied to those things, right? And that's why this is when both, okay, you can naturally operate how you're going to naturally operate, but the way you're going to use these things in this life, socially, emotionally, all that is still attached to the natural use of it. And both people need to be moving responsibly, socially, financially, emotionally, when operating in these lanes of sex and romance. And if you're not doing it, then you're out of line, you're out of power, whether you're a man or you're a woman. That's why I say it's actually on even playing field, right? Because look, if a woman kind of, you know, moving like on a extra not being chosen level sexually, but in a more of a pursuing level sexually, that's kind of out of the natural state of it. But what can cause that to happen is probably something like, I say this, talk about this in another video called Promiscuous Woman versus Man. And it's not, don't prejudge that video off the title. I'm holding both people accountable in that video, right? But yeah, something probably emotionally, social engineering, something that, you know, something could have happened to her, something that she saw, some void that she have, is going to start to can start to govern how she's going to move naturally in that lane of sex, and it can cause her to start operating a certain way. Same way with the dude. And I talk about this in a video I made called Men Who Cheat, Watch This, right? Because those same things, like I say, those social things, those natural things, those emotional things, all these things that's also attached to the sex drive and that's attached to the romance or whatever, depending on how you operating in those things. If you're not being, I'm gonna keep saying this, I said it in other videos, you're probably gonna hear me say it again, being purposeful and intentional when operating in the lane of romance and sex. If you're not moving right in some of these areas, whether it's emotionally, whether it's what you saw coming up and how, you know, sex was taught to you, or what you saw romantically or sexually, whether it's your household, whether there's a peer group you had, whether, you know, how you moving financially, or what, all these things are still tied to those natural sex drives and how you naturally operate in them. And if you're not being purposeful, intentional in those areas, it can cause you to start being out of control sexually. Because you being the natural pursuer doesn't mean you should just go around willy-nilly just wrecking shop with all these things of emotion, all these things of whether you're gonna be a productive family man, whether you're gonna, you know, be able to nurture that woman emotionally and sexually in a responsible way. Because if you don't do it, you know, that's how I keep saying it, like in dating wars and stuff like that. That's how you start getting the gender wars. That's how you start getting the broken homes. All these things are attached to how you're going to naturally use the sex drive. We're going to use it differently. You know, our approach is going to be differently as different genders, but we all have a responsibility when operating in these lanes of sex and romance. Because if we don't, there's going to be some type of breakdown in some way, shape, or form, and that's why it's really truly on even playing field. Having that naturally being the pursuer don't exempt you, like I say, from operating responsibly in these lanes with all these important things attached to it that may not be natural, that may be more social or financial or family building, like I said, or what have you. So it's on even playing fields. Make no mistake about it.